Andrew Stark is a young and emerging artist in the Fargo-Moorhead area. He studied art at Minnesota State University Moorhead, and his art is displayed in galleries all over the region.
Trying to create some kind of spiritual moment with painting, that's my ultimate goal. It really started with being 5 years old and drawing, and drawing at the kitchen table with my father. My parents were always very encouraging of my artwork, always encouraging me to draw as much as possible. Once I got to college, I decided to take some art classes, and I really fell in love with painting. I loved that working method, the experience of painting, and kind of the meditative qualities of it. I'm very influenced by the abstract expressionists. I always found I loved more of an expressive, kind of action experience-oriented kind of style, as opposed to a highly realistic. I consider myself a colorist, and in terms of the process, it's all about the responding to the mark. Drawing has been very influential in terms of putting a mark down, responding to that mark, trying to understand or design the chaos that you create and make order out of it. The process of being in the studio at MSUM and working and getting feedback from professors, from fellow students, colleagues, that I think is kind of where you start to really gauge your work. You can look at it objectively, you start to understand how the viewer responds to it. You develop, conceptually, develop the material, the technique. I remember that first step was very daunting. You're putting your work out there to be judged. But I had a very good reception early on. I got into the Underbrush Gallery right away after my BFA show. So those experiences really allow you to start to get the desire to show work. My paintings are very influenced by my mood. I think they're evocative of different moods. The viewer is always going to take something away from a painting that I don't anticipate or expect, and I have to take that into consideration. My intent is more that it creates some kind of emotional response with a person. All of my paintings are kind of interior and exterior, not only influenced by the outside, but my own inner thoughts and moods and feelings, and trying to evoke a feeling in that sense. Knowing when you're done is always difficult. My mentor, Zimi Guan, used to say, a painter is never finished, the painting is never done. Or the artist is never happy with the result, it's always a constant struggle. I tend to work on 4 or 5 paintings at once, and so I'm kind of always rotating. When I'll get stuck, I'll move on to something else and come back. So, it can take weeks, it can take months. I have some paintings that I haven't been happy with over the course of a year or two. I come back to it and something will happen. It's difficult to find that stopping point. There's a feeling I have when it feels complete. At least it becomes, in my mind, really set in its own objectness. Once the work for me is completed, it's done, and I need to move on. I've had to supplement my income. That's part of the struggle. I feel like I've been extremely lucky in being able to get into galleries, such as Etche, and have an opportunity to show my work and to sell work. But it is hard. It's difficult as a career. But going into it and deciding to get my bachelor's and then ultimately my master's of fine art, I knew that this was the path I wanted to take. This was my passion. It keeps you coming back, and so far it's been very rewarding. The community, especially downtown, is very arts pro and arts supportive. It's very inspirational for me, and it gives me a sense of peace. Arts often have a lot of difficulty in terms of support, but I think there's always room for improvement. Follow your passion, do what you love. Don't be afraid to take risks. One of the biggest lessons that I learned while in school was, and especially with painting, was not being afraid to fail in terms of my work. Always pushing forward, experimenting, exploring, trying as many techniques as possible, trying as many things as you can, and to really carve out where you want to go.
Prairie Mosaic is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008. The North Dakota Humanities Council, a nonprofit, independent state partner of the National Endowment for the Humanities. The North Dakota Council on the Arts, and by the members of Prairie Public.